Thursday. I guess I'm supposed to speak more slowly. Is that correct, Jared? Am I supposed to speak more slowly?
Why would you speak more slowly?
I don't know. Apparently I'm speaking too fast for people to keep up, so I have to slow down the pace a little bit. But, you know, the cool thing with on-demand radio is what? You can go back and listen to it again in case you missed something. Maybe we should do closed captions for the hearing impaired.
There we go.
There we go. All right.
It's a good idea. It's a great idea, actually.
It's an awesome idea. All right. I got administrative notes in my show notes here. Administrative note number 1. The American Association of Firearms Users, or AAFU Nation, or American Association of FU.com. Just put American Association. If they put AAFU, does that come up? Does it pop up in the search engine?
Let's find out.
Oh, find out.
Probably not.
Probably not, because
it's not new enough.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it is the first one for me.
Oh, okay.
Because I have cookies. And do you like cookies? Because the dark side has cookies.
Yeah, well, I put it in too, and it's the
everything on the front page.
Yeah. All right. Cool. This is AmmoLand, the AmmoLand story, and the hashtag. So
yep, Twitter AAFU hashtag.
All right. So all you freaks that don't like to type in actual words into your search engine, type in AAFU. That'll take you to the store. And the reason we're mentioning it because Jeremy has been really working hard behind the scenes and coming up with new. He was trying to find, bless his heart, trying to find a good way to deliver products. And if you've ever run your own business, if you haven't, just listen up. If you've ever run your own business, it seems easy on the outside. Like, I want to buy a T-shirt. I want to buy a hat. I want to buy this. When you go to buy a hat or a T-shirt or whatever, you never think, well, before I can buy that, the company owner has to go to a manufacturer and has to give them the specs. They have to do it. He has to pay for the shipping or the delivery or the setup or the whatever. When you buy shirts, hats, patches, whatever, what you don't see is this thing called the setup fee. And every embroiderer, every printer, everybody, if you go the standard route, you have to pay a setup fee. And then after you pay the setup, then they're less expensive. So how can you do that? In the modern age, the way to get around setup fees and stocking and inventory is to do print-on-demand stuff. And that's really where we're at now. But the thing with print-on-demand is sometimes it's a little bit more expensive, but whatever. So this is something that Jeremy has had to deal with. We've been dealing with this. We're experienced in that field about inventorying T-shirts and stuff like that. But Jeremy is new to it, and he's been working to find a solution to provide you with American Association of Firearms Users, or AAFU merchandise, because we don't need your permission. That's why. And we joked when we first came up with this, or the second show or the third show or whatever, we joked about that eventually we wanted to have an adult-friendly version that said, because FU, that's why. And so that exists now, actually.
That is there.
There's awesome. If you go to the American Association of FU.com and you click on the little store tab, I think it's store tab or product tab or whatever. You're smart. You can figure it out. Store tab. It says adult-themed AAFU shirt. And on the front, it has the red, white, and blue AAFU logo, which is cool. Rock on.
Awesome logo. And
on the back, it says, because, boop, you, that's why. So, if you're feeling froggy, you're feeling a little bit froggy, all right, rock on and get yourself one. And it took Jeremy a little bit to get these because he tried to go to a standard printer. He tried to get coffee mugs made, and the coffee mug printer said that they refused to make that. And I was like, really? Have you been to Spencer's Gift? It's like, have you ever been to Spencer's? There's way more, quote, offensive things there. So anyway, we thought we'd do a little admin plug at the beginning of the show there. So check out the American Association of FU.com, born on Student of the Gun Radio, and incubated by Jeremy at AAFU. Oh, what else do we want to talk? We got any other admin stuff? It is a Thursday, so we don't have any special features today. Any admin
We are
stuff?
a special feature.
Well, I know that. We hope. Oh, if you didn't read the article yet, the weakness article, you need to do that. go to the Student of the Gun blog or go to any one of our numerous social media sites and check that out. Share it with your friends. Essentially, it links in perfectly with yesterday's show about just this rampant epidemic disease of weakness in America. How adult humans, men and women, but especially men, have become so weak. It's almost nauseating, the level of weakness. I saw the rebel flag, and I started shaking, and I almost vomited, and I ran away. How do you live if you're that weak? That's like British weak. That's like United Kingdom weakness. That's wow. I'm going to put a link to the article in the show notes. Now, you guys know, and you should know by now, but in case you're new, when you listen, you might be listening on iTunes or Stitcher. Oh, did you see we bumped up in the Stitcher ratings?
Huh.
Yeah, we jumped up in the Stitcher ratings this week. We are the only gun-related show in the Stitcher Radio Top 100. I don't know how that happened, but it is.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And we jumped up in the ratings this week. But if you're listening on Stitcher, Podcast Republic, iTunes, whatever, you may not realize that there is a studentofthegunradio.com.
Yeah, because on the iTunes feed, there are only the newest 50 episodes.
Yeah, the last 50 are the only ones you can access.
The rest of them, are available on studentofthegunradio.com, and you better go there quick and get them because soon it's only going to be available to the grad program members.
Yeah, but when the reason we mention it is every show we reference material, we reference source material, links and so forth. If you want the link, people are like, well, where do I get that, Paul? Well, I'll tell you where you get it. You go to studentofthegunradio.com and you open up the show notes, and bam, there's a link that you can share with your friends and family and so forth. So we're going to put the not only the AAFU link in there, but the weakness article link in there as well. All right, diving right into it. Man, we're 8 minutes into the show already. Velocity Triggers. Congratulations to Velocity Triggers for their recent feature article. And make sure you check those guys out at velocitytriggers.com. You got a black rifle? They got a trigger for you. And if you got a black rifle, you should be Frog Lube in that sucker. Frog Lube, it's green and it just works. It's like seasoning a cast iron skillet. You get it on there, and it's going to make your guns run fantastically. So froglube.com. It's American-made, American-owned. It's owned by a U.S. Military veteran, a former frog. Yes, that would be a U.S. Navy SEAL. That's the thing is people are like, well, how are you a SEAL and a frog at the same time? Those are two different animals. Jared, you know where the frog thing comes from, right? Really?
Nope.
You're just like scratching your head. You really don't know where the frog reference for U.S. Navy SEALs come from?
Nope.
Well, how they became? Well, way back in the olden times, before the modern era, they didn't have Navy SEAls. And you know what SEAL stands for, right?
Special equipment.
No, SEAL, sea,
land.
air, and
I'm
land.
just kidding.
You're stupid. But anyway, the original divers, first they were UDT, underwater demolitions teams, but they were called frogmen. U.S. Navy SEALs, divers, and frogmen, and they evolved into the modern SEAL teams. So that's why the teams, when they have the frog tattoos and the frog with the trident and all that stuff, that's where that comes from. For those of you that didn't know. Anyway, and so Frog Lube is owned by a retired frogman, Navy SEAL guy. Get it? You get it now, don't you? All right, Jared, you ready to jump into our...
Actually, I'm going to go back.
That's my Geddy Lee there.
I'm going to go back to the conversation that we were having about 2 minutes ago.
Oh, okay.
And for the iTunes and everybody that listens to the Student of the Gun Radio show, us on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever, sometimes our feed gets messed up or iTunes doesn't publish it or something. But you know what happens when that happens? The show is still available on studentofthegunradio.com and also
exactly,
and also on the Student of the Gun mobile app. So if you guys don't want to miss a show, make sure you have the mobile app downloaded as a backup, at least, if you don't use it every day.
Yeah, there's this thing called the RSS feed, and we create the feed, and it goes out to the world. And iTunes pick, and a lot of people are like, I listen to Pocket Cast, or I listen to Pod Gallery, or I listen to whatever, and they're like, it wasn't there. Well, that's because it's fed from iTunes.
Here's how this works.
iTunes feeds a ton of them.
Well, some feed readers are way more strict, like the ones that have more features, such as iTunes. You can control pretty much everything with iTunes. It's super strict about everything on your feed has to be absolutely perfect. So if there's one extra space in one of our posts, it'll mess up the feed. And that's what happened last week. So I deliberately made our audio player on our mobile app so it's not that strict. It'll
simple.
Read. Yeah, it's simple. You just got a play button, a pause button, and something else. I don't know. I haven't looked at it lately, but it'll read stuff even if iTunes can't. So it'll always be there.
There you go. All right, so cat in a hat and that be that. Yeah, if you're listening to our voices right now, you always want to have a redundancy set up because, in the electronic world, look, dudes, people are like, oh, that's pretty messed up. Your stuff should be tighter than that. Really? The New York Stock Exchange computers crashed last week. We don't have quite the revenue stream that the New York Stock Exchange has. United Airlines computers crashed last week. And you know what was weird? Is that all happened on the same day as our iTunes feed got screwed up. Mm-hmm. I don't know. All right, you ready to I can't do a Geddy Lee, but Geddy Lee can do a Geddy Lee. Thank you, Geddy Lee, and the McKenzie brothers, Bob and Tom. And you young crumb crunchers have absolutely no idea what that is. But you know what you can do? You can duck it. Go to DuckDuckGo and put in McKenzie brothers, or take off, eh? This story comes to us from the Great White North from ctvnews.ca. And when we're doing a .ca story, that means that we're going to be going up north to the Great White North of Canada. Well, you say, I don't live in Canada, Paul, so I don't care. You should care, because the left wing in America, the progressive statists, think that Canada is a wonderful panacea, that it is the model. Canada is the model that America should take. And you're like, should we take that model or not? When we talk about gun control, when the left wing, when the Nanny Bloombergs and the Pelosi's and all the other puke-faced scumbags, when they talk about greater restrictions and gun registration and blah, 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 they like to point to Canada and say, well, look at all the gun restrictions that Canada has, and they're just wonderful and they're reasonable. Yeah, it works out really well. Gun control works. Gun control absolutely works. Just not for you. It works for criminals. It works for home invaders, murderers, robbers, rapists. It works great for them, but just not so much for you. All right, story headline, Surrey man murdered defending his home against intruder. A 22-year-old man will be charged with second-degree murder after what police say was a random killing in a Surrey home Sunday evening. Surrey RCMP responded to reports of shots fired in a home on 64th Avenue near 166th Street late Sunday night. When police arrived, they found a man who had died from what appeared to be gunshot wounds. On Monday, homicide investigators identified the victim as Colin Hill, 42. Police said he was shot during an altercation with the suspect, who had broken into his home. Jared, I don't understand this. This doesn't make any sense. The suspect, who was not identified, has a lengthy criminal record. Now, hang on.
Really?
You're telling me that a recidivist criminal was able to get a hold of a gun even though it's illegal in Canada to do that? Now, we know in Canada that if you can get the special, really super expensive permission slip from the government to own certain, firearms, especially handguns, because those are super dangerous, if you do that, you are forbidden to keep them loaded and staged and ready for home defense. If the RCMP shows up unannounced to your house to inspect it, which they have been doing, we've done that story previously on Stu to the Gun Radio, that the RCMP has been going to to people who own evil semi-automatic handguns and demanding to inspect their not criminals, not drug dealers, not rapists, not murderers. No, but people whose crime is being a licensed gun owner. Because apparently there is no crime in Canada. Almost said America there. In Canada, because the RCMP has plenty of time to go around to lawful gun owners' homes and inspect their gun collections. So here we have little Johnny Scumbag. You notice how they identify the victim, throw his name out there, but we don't want to prejudice the jury. Oh, it's too late. In the story, here's the crazy thing. The story says the suspect, who has not been identified, and then they drop in artist rendering of the suspect at his arraignment, and it says the accused murderer, Khouri, Khouri, Lamar Green, appeared in a Surrey courtroom on July 14th to be arraigned for second-degree murder. Oh, okay. So here we have a home invasion in Canada. The person invading the home is a 22-year-old career criminal, 22 years old, lengthy criminal record. Why isn't he in jail? If he has a lengthy criminal record, why is he not currently incarcerated?
They let people that chop other people's heads off out on for a
day pass.
Yeah, that's what it was called, a day pass to go peruse the city.
Yeah, just kind of get a feel for the city. We want to see how you work. If you don't come back, well, it's all right. We'll just put out an APB and maybe you'll show up eventually. Here we go. You want to this was a tragic and truly senseless act that has no rationale, said Surrey RCMP Chief Superintendent Bill Forty. I'm still angry at this pointless loss of life. Hey, Bill, I got something for you. Screw you. Screw you and your entire Gestapo mentality in Canada. Your statist, communist, socialist idea of gun safety in Canada. Canada is a place where they arrest people for having airsoft guns that are too powerful. Where the RCMP, do you guys remember that show from about a year ago or so? Where the Canadian RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, I don't know if they still have horses up there, had seized airsoft guns and sent them to the testing lab to determine whether or not they were firearms. You can't make this crap up, folks. In Canada, you have the RCMP that is sending detectives around to investigate and inspect gun collectors, to demand access to their gun collections. We have the RCMP confiscating toy guns. I'm sorry, but an airsoft gun is a toy gun. Oh, I know, but it looks really scary, and that makes me scared. It makes me tinkle in my pants a little bit. And here's this guy's like, well, this is really terrible. Well, what do you think we should do there, Bill? Well, we can't. We have a 22-year-old felon with a lengthy criminal record, but we can't lock him up. He's got a second-degree murder charge, so probably eventually he might go to trial and he might go to jail. But how long is he going to stay there? Like Jared said, you can chop your mother's head off and get a day pass to walk around Toronto. So how long do you suppose young Khouri Lamar Green is going to spend in jail?
It's funny, is that in the story it says the suspect who was not identified. And then over here in the pictures, it has a picture of a drawing of a dude, and underneath it says, accused murderer Khouri Lamar Green.
Welcome to the show, Jared Markle. Thanks for joining us. I said that exact same thing 5 minutes ago.
Oh, yeah, I didn't hear that.
You had tuned out.
Yeah.
It might have been when you took your headphones off.
That was when I walked away to go get my water.
When you walked away.
Yeah.
And the audience just got a good chuckle out of that. So Jared walked away to get himself a bottle of water.
Yeah. That's funny.
But thank you for reinforcing that point. Yeah, I did think that was funny. Cloverdale used to be safe, said one neighbor. When people put U's in I don't know. This is the first time it's happened, and we are very scared. Well, you're going to continue to be scared because your government has disarmed you. You're essentially a bunch of helpless tax slaves, and if you try and keep a gun ready and available to defend yourself, you are going to end up being the criminal. What a wonderful country you live in. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the country that all of the good little leftists in America, the Nanny Bloombergs and the Kumos and the Chucky Schumers, that's the model that they're looking for. That's right there. They're looking for the Canadian model or the Great Britain model, because everything is wonderful in the Isles of Great Britain, is it not? There's no violence. Criminals are polite. They don't break into your home. They don't chase you through a neighborhood and chop your head off and hold it up for everyone to see. None of that happens in Great Britain because they have so much restrictions. I was thinking the other day, am I allowed to talk about what I was thinking, Jared?
Sure.
The logic behind the gun control movement is, well...
There is none?
Yeah, well, it's this sick and twist. It doesn't hold up to any type of scrutiny because it's based all upon emotion. But the South Carolina travesty, all right, the murders, the act of domestic terrorism committed by that puke-faced scumbag in South Carolina. So that happens, and rather than addressing the fact that you had 9 deliberately helpless victims there waiting to be murdered, rather than address that, rather than say, okay, how can we stop people in the future from being just mowed down, killed like sheep at the slaughter? How can we stop that? What you do is, no, what we'll do is we're gonna make it really hard for people that follow the law to get firearms and use them for defense. That's the model. That is like saying fire is bad and fire is scary. And so I say to you, well, let's teach everyone here how to use a fire extinguisher and put a fire out. And you say, no, that would take time and effort. And what if they can't get to the fire extinguisher? Or what if the fire extinguisher is broken? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to pass a law against matches to prevent fires. You say, but what if a fire starts, what if somebody gets a hold of matches, because we know matches exist and they are already out there. So if we pass a law against matches, that's not going to keep matches from being in existence, is it? And a bad person might get a hold of matches. So what happens when a fire starts and no one knows how to put it out? Well, we need more anti-fire laws. That's what we need. Same thing with first aid. I say, let's teach everyone here at Student of the Gun University, let's go ahead and teach everyone basic first aid so they know how to treat bleeding injuries. And you say, no, it would take time. I mean, teaching people how to treat wounds and to use bandages, and, there would be a lot involved. And what if they couldn't get to the first aid kit in time? And what if their first aid kit wasn't available or they weren't certified? Why don't we I know what we'll do. We'll pass a law against sharp objects. That way no one will ever get cut and bleed. So rather than teach people, and that is the exact same mentality, rather than teach people how to successfully defend themselves against vile criminals, against the violent element of the world, what we're going to do is we're going to pass more laws. But you say, Paul, that doesn't make any sense. No, it doesn't make any sense. But it's the same logic. Next time your Aunt Tilly or Frank at work or your Susie at work or whatever comes up with this, we need to pass more laws and there's no reason anybody should be allowed to own a semi-automatic handgun because I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Say, well, should we pass laws against matches and fire? Because people die in fires every year. Well, no, that would be stupid. Or you say, hey, Jared, at pretty much every major employer in the world, I mean, you name it, when you were working for Highside, did you have to go through the fire extinguisher safety training? Did you know where the fire extinguishers were? You had to prove. You're nodding your head, and that's really great, but like a Muppet, the people at home can't see you nodding your head.
Oh, yeah. Well, I didn't want to interrupt.
Feel free to say yes.
Yes. Yes.
Did you do CPR training? CPR and Heimlich?
Maybe.
I know. I've been employed by numerous companies where, as a part of your employment, you have to go through annual CPR and Heimlich.
I think so.
But why? Shouldn't we just pass a rule or a law or put a memorandum? That's what we could do for instead of teaching people the Heimlich maneuver, we'll pass a memorandum forcing people to chew their food more thoroughly, hence not having to choke to death. Folks, it's crazy. And you say, all right, you're at work. Let's say you work for a reasonable company, and you're dealing with some of these anti-gun ninnies, these pro-gun control ninnies. These people are like, well, I can see passing more laws because that keeps people safe. And you say, why do we do CPR and Heimlich here, right? Well, yeah. Why? Well, because we're teaching, people how to be safe or how to help others in the case of an emergency. Okay, is that right? Well, yeah, that's a wonderful thing to do. Why don't we just pass rules against people having heart attacks? Well, you can't pass a rule against people having heart attacks. They're just going to have them. Well, why don't we pass rules against people choking or failing to chew their food appropriately? Well, you can't do that. Sometimes people need your help, and you have to be able to help them. Oh, really? Sometimes there's an emergency, and people need your help. Unless that help requires you using a tool, such as a weapon, to stop the bad people, then, oh, no, we need more laws. Makes no sense. All right. Moving on. You want to move on? We got another Canadian story before we go on to a kind of a cool Go Team story. But before we do that, we're going to thank our friends at Brownells. Jared, do you want to thank our friends at Brownells? Why not?
Yes,
let's do it.
Let's do that. Brownells is awesome.
Brownells.com. They've got a new product section that you want to be checking out frequently. And one of the things that they're selling right now is their 308 magazines, their 5.56 magazines, and I just saw that they're having ammo sales, and I believe they even have 22 in stock. Or at least they do when I was recording this. And Duracoat firearms finishes. The can technology is going to blow your mind. You can order that from Midway USA. You can order it from Brownells. You can order it from Lauer Custom Weaponry. Just get online and do it. You want to. All right, this next story, I won't have Jared play the Canadian update theme again, but it's a Canada theme. You're like, what is going on with Canada? We had these spikes. You ever notice that, Jared, how we have these weird spikes of Canada-themed news?
Yeah, we do. It's kind of weird. And this is one of those weeks.
All right, the source for this is ammoland.com. Medical degree, paranoia, and irrational fear of guns do not make Ron Sharrock an expert. Who is Ron Sharrock? Well, Dr. Ron Sharrock apparently don't like guns. And Dateline Canada, this is the source for this is the Canadian Shooting Sports Association. In his ongoing zeal to blame licensed gun owners for the crimes of deranged murderers, writer and, quote, mental health expert Ron Sharrock opens his argument that gun registry was useful because it saved lives and could help track down where illegal gun owners, James Roscoe or Michael Zouf Babadou, got their guns.
It still wouldn't have saved lives.
How does that save lives? It's like, well, hey, we caught the murderer. Okay, but the person who was murdered is already dead. You get that, right? You got that. All right. Tracking down where James Roscoe and Michael Zef Bibo got guns that used to kill 4 police officers and a soldier. Oh, that was the Canadian terrorist acts that you're not supposed to remember anymore. It's not saving lives. It's police investigation after the bodies are long cold. It may make us feel better knowing where the guns came from, but it does nothing to prevent a single murder. Folks, yeah, and it goes on to talk about the RCMP members that lost their lives and the soldier, the Corporal Nathan Siro, who was murdered. Oh, and something that these guys like Dr. Ron Sharrock, that they just skip right over is the whole there's these goat rapists running around in your country, these zealots, and they're murdering your citizens. But we don't want to talk about that because that would be mean and that would be racist and that would, that might hurt the terrorists, the people who went on their little Johnny Jihad vacations. They went over to Syria and Iraq and railed against the West. And they said, here's what we're going to do. We have brothers. You remember the brother speech? The Skyped brother speech, yep, where little Johnny Goat Rapist is over there in Syria, and he burned his Canadian passport, and he laughed about how the Canadian authorities were afraid to question him and stop him. And so he's over there, and he says, we have brothers, inshallah, Durka Durka, Muhammad Jihad, that are going to be committing attacks in Toronto, in Canada, Ontario, in New York. He said this was going to happen. Then it happened. And so what is Dr. Ron Chirac's answer to this? Oh, we need gun registry and restrictions, and that's really super important that we have that. What? Are you insane? Are you a mental patient? So you have scumbag terrorists who get right in your face and say, oh, here's what we're going to do. We're going to send our brothers to kill and murder your citizens. And you're like, well, we need to get hot on this gun registry thing. That's what we need to do. And that way, after our police officers and soldiers, after they're murdered, we can find out where the guns came from. Well, that's a great plan. Well, and the plan is really, well, what if they don't use guns? What if they're like the hatchet attacker, little Johnny Jihad hatchet murderer, dude who walked down the street and attacked 2 NYPD guys with a freaking hatchet? He didn't go into a gun store and buy a gun. If I take a hatchet to your noggin on the streets in New York, you're probably not going to care whether it was made by Glock or Smith & Wesson. People have been splitting humans have been splitting each other's heads open with axes and hatchets and what have you for several thousand years now. So how does all this guy, he heralds the Canadian gun control system for, I don't know, keeping Canadians subservient. And the insanity of the whole thing, if you guys don't remember, if you weren't with us then, was that after this little Johnny Jihad scumbag terrorist puke face just like walked up to this soldier at the memorial and murders him, the solution offered by Canada is to put armed police officers as security for the soldiers. And you're looking at me, you're looking at your iPod, your phone, you're like, the what? Well, because you can't allow the soldiers to have loaded guns, because that's dangerous. I know. I don't even know how you like the kind of mind that the twisted, infected, diseased brain that comes up with the idea that we have to do something to protect our soldiers when they're guarding, when they're doing honor guard at the memorial. And someone says, well, how about we just give them bullets for their guns? Oh, you can't do that. That's so unsafe. And you're like, excuse me. Yes, you in the back. So what you're telling me is that the soldiers can't be trusted with loaded guns. Well, what if someone were to come up and steal their gun from them? What? That is the liberal reasoning why you can't arm soldiers, because someone might take. He's a soldier. It's not a freak. You're not giving rifles to Girl Scouts. So what you're telling me is the soldier is not strong enough or well-trained enough to use his loaded rifle to stop himself from being robbed. So what we need to do is to put police officers. What's to stop a bad person from taking a police officer's gun? Oh, the police officers are trained, and they're just like, oh my God, you're hurting my brain. It's the stupidity in Canada is hurting my brain. It's so bad. Okay. Oh, but we need to be more like them, don't we, Jared? We need to be more like Canada.
Yep, we need to be
Canada's wonderful.
more like Canada.
Yay! Oh, Canada. Canadians actually used to have some chutzpah. If you're listening to me in Canada, rock on. Go back to the 1700s, the 1800s. You folks up in Canada used to actually know how to fight. You did. Historically, Canadians used to be some serious fighters. They kicked there were several times when the colonists decided they were going to march north and take Montreal or Ottawa or whatever, and they didn't win every battle. A lot of battles they lost because the Canadians kicked their butts. It kind of went back and forth for about 100 years there, but I don't know what was the turning point when you became a bunch of socialist peasants and tax slaves, and it's just that whole reasonable thing. If we could just be more reasonable. Now, Jared, I found the next story, and this is a really cool story that I did not know existed, but I found it on BearingArms.com. And I'm sure that you guys are all familiar with the Duck Commanders and the Duck Men and what have you. If you're not, I don't know what to say to you. But there's the Robertson clan, and the youngest brother, Jep, J-E-P, Jep Robertson. He did a campaign for Fight the Noise, and it's essentially a pro-silencer, pro-suppressor campaign. And we applaud this. I think it's fantastic because we've talked about it. Lots of people talked about it. The noise from a firearm is just a byproduct. It offers you no benefit. You're like, well, I can hear when other hunters are in the woods. By the time you hear the rifle shot, the bullet is already flown through the air and impacted into something. You understand that, right? Unless they're shooting at you from several hundred yards away, and then I don't even know what to tell you. But we in the United States of America need to get our collective heads out of our rectums. And I'm not talking about the leftists. I'm not talking about Democrats. I'm talking about us, the gun people. There are still people that are, quote, in the gun culture that don't get the silencer thing. They don't get suppressors. Well, I don't see why we need those. It leads to poaching. Yeah, because poaching with 22s has never occurred in the history of the world. Jared, will you go ahead and play this audio for me? It's relatively short. It's a couple of minutes, but it's a cool piece of audio. I want you guys to listen to it. This is Jep Robertson from Duck Commander, and basically he's talking about the Fight the Noise campaign.
I hate wearing earplugs. Hate it. As then you're trying to talk and be like, what? What? Yeah, I'm tightening my gun. Yeah, hold on. Don't have to do that anymore. Oh. So awesome to be able to put a salvo on a shotgun, shoot clays for a couple hours, and not have a super duper headache the next day. I'm a firm believer in the Second Amendment, and I was chatting with the governor. We were talking about hunting with suppressors, and we talked about how safe it is for your hearing, how great it is for kids. And so I talked to the local congressman. He said, I got one law left to pass. I'll let you know if I can do it. The congressman called me like 6 months later and said, hey, by the way, you can deer hunt now with your suppressor. My goal is to have all my guns suppressed. Getting a suppressor is like getting a tattoo. Once you have one, you gotta have more.
You guys like that? I wanted to end the show this week, not this week. Well, I guess it is this week. Yep. It's Thursday. Oh, crap. Okay, well, we're ending the public show this week on a high note. The campaign is hashtag Fight the Noise. It's specifically sponsored, I think, by Silencer Co. But whatever suppressor, whatever you're interested in, I highly recommend it. Take the time. And I know it's a pain in the butt. It is. It is a monumental pain in the butt. I got that. But But, however, nonetheless, once you do it, once you go to your, how do you, all right, I'd like to give you a quick what for. You say, well, how do I do that? How do I go about buying a silencer? First of all, you have to live in free America or semi-free America. Because there are still some states that think that the peasants need to destroy their ears, and only the state. Now, in every state in the union, the suppressor laws don't apply to employees of the state. So if you're an employee of the state, you're good to go. But if you're a peasant, I think there's 39 or 40 states that will allow you. Find a good Class 3 dealer. Look one up in your local area, and go to that place and chat with that guy. Say, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. And the easiest thing to do, the most economical, and it's the way that a lot of people go, is they first start out with a 22 suppressor. They'll go and they'll get a 22 long rifle LR suppressor. Our boys at Atlas Defense over there in Baton Rouge, they make a really fantastic one. We featured it. We did a couple of little blurbs. What do they call that? What do they call their little can? Jared, the Atlas can, the little 22 suppressor Atlas can. What do they call that? It's like it's not the Havoc, is it?
I don't know.
Do me a favor, look at it. Go to Atlas Defense and come up with that while I'm chatting with the folks. But anyway, 22 rifles and 22 pistols with a suppressor on them are just fantastic to shoot. Like he said, you don't have to wear hearing protection because it's hearing safe. Now with supersonic 22 ammunition, yeah, you're going to hear the supersonic crack, because that's the way physics works. But if you use a subsonic load, 22 that's going around 900, 950, 990 feet per second, and you use a can, brothers and sisters, all you really hear is the action running and the bullet impacting into the target, and that's it. It's fantastic. You take your kids out and shoot. And then that's another great thing about new shooters or training new shooters. Many new shooters are very shy of the report of the blast, and they develop a flinch, or they're waiting for the pow. And even from 22s, they're waiting for the pow, and it teaches them to flinch, or it distracts them. You hand them a 22 rifle or a 22 pistol that has a silencer or a suppressor on it, and they shoot it, and then they look at you and smile real big, and they're like, I want to do this some more. And pretty soon you got a whole pile of empty 22 brass around your feet, and they got a big old grin on their face, and they had a great time, and they were able to focus on the fundamentals of shooting without worrying about the noise, and quite frankly, without bothering the neighbors or whatever. It's just the way it needs to be, and the fact that it's disgusting to me that there are European countries that get it and we don't. That's wrong. Okay, that's just flat out wrong. That there are places in Europe that you can walk into a hardware store and buy a moderator, and screw it onto your gun, and you can't do that in the United States. Is that wrong or what, Jared?
That is definitely wrong.
That's wrong, like dick cancer. All right, so what's the name of that little can?
It's the Copus.
The Copus.
Or Copus.
K-O-P-U-S. I-S-U-S.
K-O-P-I-S.
K-O-P-I-S. And let me guess, that is short for, that is probably something, they're always doing like Greek mythology or Greek history things. I'm going to do Copus definition. K-O-P-I-S, according to it is a short sword that is, here we go. To cut or strike, alternately derived from the ancient Egyptian kopesh, a cutting sword, yada, yada, yada. Okay, yeah, a lot of their stuff. A short, forward, curved sword. It's not really a sword, it's a can. They're really actually very cool because you can disassemble them and clean them. And if you're shooting 22 suppressed, let me tell you what. You know that 22s are dirty, right? I don't have to tell you that. Rimfire 22 is dirty. And you fire, 300, 400, 500 rounds into your little 22 can, that thing's going to get all funked up. That's what you need to do is take it apart, take some solvent, squirt it. And you know what we do here, and we did a whole show. Dude, is that up on the TV show yet? The suppressors and the frog lube?
Maybe.
I can't remember.
I don't know.
But we did a whole series about taking your pistol cans apart.
I think it is.
Cleaning them,
I'm not sure.
Coating them with frog lube, putting them back together, and that way they're way easier to clean. 500 rounds later, if you start out with the frog lube on them, they're way easier to get all that dirt and grime and carbon off of them. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for this week, for the public week of Student of the Gun Radio. Now, don't forget, we have a grad program every single Friday. There's the bonus hour. That is the big boy, big girl hour. And you get that if you are a Student of the Gun grad program member. And you also get the Tactical Tutor newsletter. And everybody, quick hint, everybody who was the grad program or in the grad program got the notice of the new Faith in the Patriot book first. And because they're the choir. They're the people that are really totally serious about it, and we like to reward them. So tomorrow, we're going to talk about leadership in the firearms world, in the gun culture world, and in the American Patriot world on the bonus hour. And we'll have some other cool stuff for you, too, things that we can only do, because quite frankly, we have a family-friendly rating, and we can only say and do so. We can only push the limits so far. Dick cancer is about as far as we can push the limits. That and vagination, isn't that right, Jared?
Yeah.
As for the public hour. But on Friday, for the bonus hour, it's big boy, big girl time, and anything goes. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and children of all ages, remember, you're a beginner once, but what should you always be? Well, you should be a student for life. And we will talk to you next week.